All right, we're going to talk about residential land use. Let's get into this. So, residential land use has been expanding. In fact, for the first time ever since 2009, 66% of people are living in urban areas. These are cities and the suburbs close by, compared to living in rural areas. In fact, since about 1950, more than 90% of the population growth is in the metropolitan areas was in the suburban areas. This process of urbanization is this shifting from the rural countrysides to living now closer to towns and cities. Not just in the cities themselves, but also in the areas surrounding them. And those are called the suburban areas or the suburbs. These are areas surrounding metropolitan cities with lower population density. There's also other areas that have a different classification. These are called exurban areas you might see on the APES exam. These are your commuter towns. I used to live in one of these in Southern California when I was growing up. My dad, we lived in a place called Yorba Linda. My dad every single day drove into El Segundo and drove back home. But, living in Yorba Linda, it was pretty much just a bedroom community. It's another word for exurban areas. These are just lots of houses and kind of a couple small businesses. There's not a gigantic mall or anything like that, if that kind of makes sense. So these are areas surrounding but unconnected to any central city or densely populated area. You might be able to say that Boulder City could be kind of considered to be an exurban area. Henderson would be kind of the suburbs, assuming that Las Vegas is the city central area to the Las Vegas Valley. So why are people moving into the urban areas? There's industrialization, there's job opportunities, there's maybe more affordable housing or more housing opportunities, greater sense of community for some people, and then there's also some cultural outlets. Like I'm thinking about here in Las Vegas, we've got the Smith Center, right? So people don't have access to all the really gorgeous, amazing shows that come through if they're living in a rural area compared to an urban area. All right, so where are these urban areas? There's different environmental factors that are going to influence the location of them. Things like whether or not they're hot, cold, rainy, arid, the mountains, valleys, coastlines, the topography of where these urban areas are, and whether or not they're connected to any number of waterways like a large lake or a river. So most major cities are going to be situated along some sort of major river, seacoast, railroad, the airport, or highway. Las Vegas is pretty close to the Colorado River one, but we also had the Santa Fe, New Mexico Railroad that was went straight through our town, and the reason why we were able to build it, the reason why people came, is because of their opportunities that came from the train here in Las Vegas, at least. What does this say? Most well-located cities are imperative to trade networks because they can receive goods, agriculture, manufactured products, items that have been processed, or they can ship goods. Take a look here. I wanted to share with you guys this. So here's the population density of the United States of America. There's Los Angeles. The darker colors tell us that these folks are living in urban areas. There's Chicago right there, right? New York area. And if we look at the population densities along with the inland waterways, take a look. Chicago is located right here because the Great Lakes allows access to Milwaukee, but it also connects. Chicago is connected by the Illinois River to St. Louis, which is the area where the Mississippi can be found, right? So people living in and around in Chicago would be able to build their businesses and ship goods using the waterways connected in this area here. And you can take a look at all these different urban areas. It seems like there's some sort of if it's not on the coast, where again we can ship, outwards, then it's close by to some sort of waterway. All right, let's get back into this. So what are some of the urban issues associated with living in a large city? Well, urban cities, urban areas have gigantic ecological footprints. What does it say? It says cities occupy 3% of Earth's land, but we're using up 75% of the Earth's resources. So huge carbon footprints and ecological footprints. Cities lack vegetation, right? Think of a big city. If you've ever seen Los Angeles from a plane flying in, it looks like a big concrete jungle, essentially, right? Uh, Trees, shrubs, plants, grasses have been made way for buildings and asphalt and concrete. Let's see. What does this mean? That means that there's a decrease in the carbon dioxide absorption by plants in the area and a decrease in biodiversity too. What are some of the other problems with living in an urban area? Water resource problems, expensive water canals. I'm thinking of the fact that we have a man-made reservoir, Lake Mead, situated a couple miles from where we are, and it's slowly sinking or slowly depleting over time, it seems, right? So what's going to happen? What's the solution 50 years from now if Lake Mead goes away? Are we just going to get rid of the 2 million people that are living here in the Las Vegas Valley? Probably not. We're probably going to have to build some sort of canal or some way to get water from point A into our valley so that we can continue to live, I suppose. What else? Deeper wells must be drilled too to keep up with the population demand. All right, there's some concentrated health problems too. Living in close proximity to a lot of different people means that the spread of infectious diseases can also increase. An example of this would be SARS in Hong Kong. What else is associated with living in environmental issues associated with living in urban areas? More pollution, right? There's concentrated pollution, air pollution, like motor vehicles are the world's largest source of outdoor air pollution from cities. Water pollution is huge. Sewage coming out of our toilets is the world's largest source of water pollution from cities. Municipal solid waste, or MSW pollution. This is MSW is the world's largest source of solid waste production. It's coming from cities. So lots of pollution. We'll talk about pollution later on in the class too. Speaking of pollution, there's more noise pollution. So what is noise pollution? This is any unwanted, disturbing, or harmful sound that damages or impairs or interferes with hearing, causes stress, hampers concentration and work efficiency, and causes accidents. I'd love to be able to tell this to my neighbor who seems to party outside every other Friday or so, but I'm going to not think about it right now because it just stresses me out. But noise pollution is it can make you go deaf over time. We had a large or a very prolonged fire drill just the other day, in fact, and I learned from the principal, Mr. Piccinini, that the sound level of that very loud fire drill was 75 decibels, about 10 decibels less than what would cause permanent hearing damage for us. So thankfully it wasn't too loud, I suppose, right? Noise pollution can also cause environmental stress for wildlife, maybe change some sort of mating patterns potentially. Light pollution is also an issue with urban areas too. In fact, there's a couple of examples of light pollution, of how that can affect not just humans, but birds. Migrating birds can be lured off course due to lights in an area. Another example would be endangered sea turtles can lay their eggs on beaches at night, which require darkness to do so. And so if it's too light, then they likely won't do it. Another example would be excessive light makes it difficult for astronomers to study the night sky. The other day I showed you a picture of Haleakala, that observatory at the very top of that dormant volcano in Maui. It's up there because there's not a lot of light pollution. One of the problems associated with living in an urban area is this idea of an urban heat island. The term urban heat island describes how urban areas are hotter than nearby, more rural areas. We've got some data here for you. The annual mean air temperature of a city with 1 million people can be more can be 1.8 to 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than its surroundings. In the evening, it can be even worse. So what's the cause of these urban heat islands? They start to form as vegetation in an area is replaced by asphalt and concrete for roads, buildings, and dark surfaces, surfaces that might have a lower albedo. If you remember what albedo is a measure of how reflective a surface is. And so a surface that has a lower albedo is going to absorb more heat energy rather than reflect it. So dark asphalt has a very low albedo, and as a result will absorb heat energy and feel hotter as a result. So displacing trees and vegetation is going to minimize the natural cooling effects of shading even, and the evaporation of water from soil and leaves, which can cool down an area too. Tall buildings and narrow streets can heat air trapped between them and reduce airflow, making it feel even hotter. You're going to feel urban heat islands likely when there's not quite as much wind in an area as well. Waste heat from vehicles, factories, and air conditioners are also going to add warmth to their surroundings and making the problem worse. Heat islands can affect communities by increasing the summertime peak energy demand, air conditioning costs. This is not global warming, I just want to make that clear. But it can, heat islands just indirectly maybe can contribute to global warming because the air conditioners that have to run higher and more often as a result of it being warmer in an urban area means that more carbon dioxide is going to be released to in order to fuel the air conditioner, right? There's more air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Ozone, tropospheric ozone found, like the O3 found in the troposphere, is going to be produced at a higher rate when it's warmer. There's also heat-related illnesses and mortality that we have to deal with, and also water quality could be an issue, right? Warmer water flowing into the waterways can affect aquatic ecosystems. So how can city planners fix this problem? Let me show you this. So take a look here. I found this on berkeleylab.gov. One might, let's see, there we go. So, just having a different color car, lighter colored car, is going to have a higher albedo than one that's darker. And if you have a lot of cars in an area, think of a gigantic freeway with a lot of lighter colored cars, you're going to be reflecting a lot of that heat energy back into the atmosphere. Another way to do this, so this is, let's just take a look at this. Let me interpret this real fast. It looks like areas, we've got temperature on the y-axis, and it looks like the temperature is hottest in the downtown areas where there's the least amount of vegetation. How is it then that cities can fix this problem? Well, maybe building our buildings with lighter colored, higher albedo, cooler roofs that reflect more of the light compared to a dark roof that's going to absorb more heat energy as a result. What's another way to do it? How about some cool pavement? This is maybe like concrete rather than asphalt over here. I was looking at asphalt is going to reflect 5% of heat energy that is coming from the sun. It's going to absorb 95%. So if we can build something that's not, black asphalt and lighter, it's going to reflect more and feel cooler as a result. One of the things that Chicago City Hall did was they built like a really cool garden on the very top of their City Hall building, and getting rid of any dark spaces. Having that vegetation there is going to maybe make a little bit of a difference, especially if it started to spill over into other areas too. So that's my lecture for today, and make sure that you can describe residential land use in urban areas. Make sure that you can talk about environmental issues associated with urban areas, and then discuss the causes and solutions for urban heat islands.